Right, and all right, and we're live. Well, good morning or good evening, wherever you may be. My name is Jack Zamplin, and this is Conversations with Jack. This is the first episode of my podcast that I'm producing in collaboration with OmniFlix Media. Sisla and his team there have been very nice to help me put this on, and I'm extremely excited to have my first guest be Greg Osuri from Akash Network. Greg and I have worked together for a while at this point. I was one of the first investors in the Akash network when they started working on their blockchain. And I've been advising them for a while, spent some time actually working with the company as well. So excited to check in with Greg today to hear a little bit more about what they've been working on. Greg, do you want to start us off with a quick bio so that folks know your background a little bit more?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jack. It's very, very honored to be here, the first guest, the first episode. My background, I'm Greg Osuri, the CEO founder of Akash. I'm an applied economist and a computer scientist. For the last 25 years or so, I've been programming. My last 10 years have been primarily spent in building and delivering developer tools, tools that builders use to build things. I started a company called Angel Hack, where I had incredible opportunity to launch very successful developer companies. One of them happened to be Firebase. Having the experience, seeing the first set of users come in there and using the product, and really gave me a lot of insight into understanding developers under duress. After that, I spent quite a bit of time working on this new technology back then called Linux containers. This is 2013 around timeframe. I got really deep into a ecosystem that was just budding called the Kubernetes ecosystem. So I ended up contributing quite a bit. I wrote a few libraries that are still used by Kubernetes, and different ecosystems are built around Kubernetes. That gave way to really building a tool that can leverage Kubernetes and leverage the enormous amount of computing we have to build a new generation open source cloud, the first open source cloud, and that's really what Akash is.
Nice. I also have a bit of a background in Kubernetes, which is how we met. That's a really cool topic that I feel like we could do an entire 30 minutes on, because I think there's a lot of blockchain folks who don't understand that there's this massive cloud world that's been built out by all of the major cloud providers. There's a huge amount of open source software that's come as a result of that. And Akash Network leverages that to build their technology. So Greg, when did you first hear about Cosmos, and how did you get introduced to that?
I first heard about Cosmos, I believe in 2017, if I remember correctly, from a friend of mine. I actually heard about Tendermint first before Cosmos, because we were, putting together the first prototype for what an Akash network would look like. We initially, I believe, built on Ethereum just for quick prototyping. Now, of course, that's really when the CryptoKitties incident was happening, and we discovered if you can't scale beyond 40,000 users, we really have to think through a lot of these architectural choices. And that's when our decision to go sovereign as a chain came about. And that it was obvious, right? Tendermint was the only possible framework that was available in a library format. Everything else was, the L1 that we had to go depend on, and we couldn't have enough trust in any of these chains back then that they would scale to the envelope, the performance envelope we would require. And also, Tendermint happened to be Golang. So we were primarily a Golang shop, and me, my co-founder, Adam, we both have done quite a bit of work. If you go to our GitHubs, you'll have an idea as to our contributions. And so Go, the reason we wanted to choose something like that was built in Go is because in case we have to go jump in to fix things, we can actually go jump in and fix things without feeling foreign. So it's like something compared to written in Rust or something, right? It's going to be hard for us.
Man, Rust.
I love. Off topic, but
it's great. Compile times are rough, but yeah.
Yeah, Rust gets a little rusty there. But Golang was obvious choice, and third, I guess, like was when we looked at this GitHub history, the commit history, we noticed one amazing thing that's very common across very successful packages: pragmatism and how fast they ship. When we first adopted Kubernetes, Tendermint, it was early, but we were very impressed by the speed at which the team was moving. So a lot of things that were very impressive about Tendermint that made us choose. And of course, when we started working on Akash early 2018, first prototype we built was purely on Tendermint. We ended up writing a lot of these modules ourselves. And when we discovered Cosmos, which is like kind of like Ruby on Rails, if you think about it, for building blockchains, and it had incredible amount of modules that are that have shared functionality with most of the blockchains that we didn't have to go do it ourselves. And if I remember correctly, I think we got rid of, like, the first migration we did, we got rid of 70,000 lines. The first commit, if you remember that time.
That was an unbelievably large commit. It was wild.
Yeah, 70,000 lines, and I think the next one was 100, close to about 100,000 lines of code that we could remove. And I know blockchain people just love putting in more code, and you measure your progress by lines of code, but we measure progress by deleted lines of code. So that's a good thing.
So that's how you found Akash. That's how you found Cosmos. And one thing Greg didn't mention as part of that story is that Tendermint version of the chain that he built back in late 2019. They did a testnet that was incredibly successful and helped sort of catalyze the next stage of growth, and enabled Akash to fund the development of that Cosmos SDK based chain, as well as bring on some more folks and start marketing. You just completed another testnet for that new system. Do you want to talk to me a little bit about how that went and what developers deployed on Akash?
Absolutely. I think this is also a conversation on the ecosystem and the strength of ecosystem, how they can play into success of a project. We originally built based on the early versions of Tendermint in 2018. We demonstrated that to our community in our first ever incentivized testnet. It was built with a lot of similarity to Cosmos Game of Sticks. Thanks to Jack and Zaki for putting that together. We kind of designed it, incentivized it and created a set of guided challenges that folks could go along and then earn a few tokens. This is before we launched. And in that, I believe we had about 1,900 deployments and about 130 providers. And we were growing at around 130% month over month, a week over week, if I remember correctly. This was phenomenal. It was just beyond anything that we could imagine. Of course, it had its quirks. It had its limitations. It was really old version of Tendermint that evolved quite a bit. And a lot of the code we wrote was like, well, not exactly production ready, because there's just a lot to build on to do a blockchain. Again, this is before we were financed, and we were a small team.
Yeah, totally. Greg, you had written your own proof of stake system, and a lot of the infrastructure that comes with these sort of build your own blockchain platforms right now was not available. Correct. At the time, and you kind of had to build all of that out yourself, which is one of the reasons for all of that code deletion, but an incredible effort in an amazing product. And when I reflect back on that, and then also the success that you guys have seen in this testnet, it just tells me the massive amount of pent-up demand there is for these decentralized compute products. If you look at what happened with Parler and the deplatforming there, and a lot of what's going on in the broader tech ecosystem in terms of deplatforming and lack of access to some of these centralized platforms, I think that building these things on decentralized alternatives is the only way to make them truly reliable for business. And that's fundamentally what we're doing here. And using the tools that the cloud providers themselves built in Kubernetes to do that gives you the ability to reach the broadest clientele as quickly as possible. And that to me is the genius of Akash.
Yep. And again, so that first testnet allowed us to build a community, allowed us to fundraise. And I think the story of like being pragmatic and pushing code as fast as possible and using Tendermint to achieve the pragmatism and speed, iteration speed, led us to here when we launched our latest testnet. We had 3,800 or so deployments in 2 weeks. And we have this repo called Awesome Akash where people share their STL files. So if somebody can link to the thing, it'll be great. We have about 80 applications that people shared, all the way from MySQL databases, OmniFlix, you guys contributed to that as well, to a lot of DeFi frontends, a lot of DeFi nodes, a lot of Cosmos nodes. And about 480 or so developers, monthly active developers right now on the testnet, which is phenomenal. For comparison, Polkadot has about 420 monthly active developers. So, want to talk numbers, and Equinix has about 2,500. But
yeah. I mean, that's incredibly impressive, and it just goes to show that these developer platforms, like, really, really powerful. Just as a quick note, while we're doing this, we are going to be taking some questions at the end. I see some awesome ones over here from Jim and Tin. So just go ahead and post your questions in the YouTube comments, and we'll go ahead and get to them towards the end. This awesome Akash repo is just amazing. There's an incredible amount of deployments in here. So some of those deployments I've noticed are Cosmos-SDK nodes. And I also noticed that you guys had a bounty going with Thorchain to run Thorchain nodes on Akash. Do you want to talk a little bit more about your outreach to the Cosmos community in particular and how you plan to help serve that use case?
Absolutely. So in our testnet, we ran about 130 Cosmos nodes, I believe, in Akash, which is a Cosmos chain. So people ran entire testnets on Akash itself, so it gets a little meta, like running Cosmos nodes on Cosmos chains.
Turtles all the way down.
Yeah, like what happens when there's a fail? Like, yeah, all kinds of questions. But that proves that you can actually reliably run nodes pretty well, and Cosmos has 200 or so projects that can leverage Akash, which I believe is a very underserved market. So we want to make it extremely, extremely simple, significantly lower cost, and just a better user experience overall for the Cosmos ecosystem by using Akash. So imagine using Uniswap style deployments in the cloud, right? So Uniswap style user experience, no sign up, no logins, that kind of stuff. And we're also building out a entire bootstrapping infrastructure for Cosmos chains. So it doesn't matter what level, what stage you're in. If you're an early chain, you can eventually use Akash toolchain to bootstrap your node, your relay, or the whole setup and manage it right from your workstation with very little effort. So we're really looking forward to serving Cosmos ecosystem much deeper, us being in the ecosystem as well. We got picked up by Thorchain. Thorchain is a incredible, one of the largest Cosmos-SDK chains out there. And they were having an effort to decentralize because a lot of their nodes are running on Amazon. And Thorchain, if you know, the team is an anonymous team. They embrace the decentralized values really well to the core. And I reached out to them, hey, look, we can run Thor nodes pretty well. How about doing a thing? And I gave a bounty for like 250 Akash tokens for anybody that'll build a SDL file to deploy Thor on Akash. And they have the ante to about 1,000 Rune, I think, which is now about $1,700. And we are going to match that. So I think overall it's about $4,000 worth of Rune tokens and AKT tokens just for writing a guide. We already have a guide on how to deploy Akash and Akash. So just really repurposing that guide for Thor will be, for takers. So I'll post more about it soon. We will also want to do a little more for $4,000. Like we want to make sure that you have a remote key signer and like a little more production ready setup instead of just a POC guide. But it's fascinating to see the community. This is the first time someone else is paying or incentivizing to put their nodes on Akash. So it's really fascinating to see how the community is shaping up and really embracing Akash as the decentralized cloud provider.
Totally agree. what were some of the challenges you guys ran into in the testnet? Any large bugs that showed up, or any major issues that you guys ran into?
There was, yeah, there were a few issues. I mean, we're fixing those. I mean, there was an issue on on the scheduler, and how we sort of like allocate resources. We were advertising a wrong number, so it's getting oversubscribed. And when the nodes get oversubscribed, it drops your nodes, and so it was an error that was overseen. A lot of things around usability. So on how people use stuff, nothing critical though, which is good. So all these, non-critical bugs, and we fixed and we're ready to go. So we actually, right now, we're going to freeze the binary on 14th of February. So that's when the upgrade process to Mainnet 2 starts. So that's really exciting, and we're really confident about Mainnet 2.
Well, that went into my second question, which is when Mainnet 2 in mid-February is very exciting. I'm also working on a mainnet for mid-February too, so exciting. That's great news. Yeah, scheduler issues in Kubernetes, definitely something you're going to run into, and kind of hard to pick up on smaller scale testnets. And one of the reasons why you would run a large scale testnet like this. So going into Mainnet 2, I know you guys have been working with a number of cloud providers. Who supported the last testnet in terms of the compute on the back end? And who are the folks that you're looking to go to market with?
So the last testnet was entirely supported by Equinix Metal. For those of you that do not know what Equinix is, it is the largest data center provider in the world. In fact, it's so large that it actually provides data centers. Yeah, it provides data centers to Amazon, right? So if you want to transfer data from one Amazon region to another, you go through Equinix data center. That's how big it is. They've been kind enough to actually give us compute for the entire testnet for effectively no cost. So yeah, they're really big supporters of Akash and open source cloud. We are also going to launch exclusively with them for the mainnet. Of course, this is permissionless network, so any provider can just list their resources. But we're going to be working with Equinix hand in hand to make sure that the providers are successful, because in the early days, as you know, as an early platform, it requires hand-holding, and we need to understand different workflows and different systems that we need to build to support our provider ecosystem. So Equinix, so you're getting high quality, really high quality bare metal servers for next to nothing. I hope these prices will stay the way they are, but I think right off the bat, we're looking for like 2 to 3x lower than the market. This is bare metal, so there's nothing in the middle. You're just getting raw performance that is not possible on the cloud today.
I think that this gets to one of the huge strengths of decentralized technologies. Right now, it's extremely hard to break into that market for selling cloud compute. And there's this monopoly, or I guess an oligopoly, between Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, essentially. And Equinix themselves are feeling the squeeze of this. Their counterparties are these very large companies that are extremely hard to negotiate with, that have a lot of pricing power over them. So why would Equinix go and do something like support Akash? It's to give them more and more markets to sell their compute in, and to reduce their reliance on these larger vendors. And once this technology gets proved out on Equinix, it's, I remember when I was at Akash, I took a number of calls with smaller data centers who were extremely excited about selling their compute on this network. And, the economic incentives are extremely powerful here. And once there's a production deployment, we're going to see a flood of these data centers come onto this network. And they're just going to be putting that compute up for relatively inexpensive in order to try to draw users in and actively compete with those larger cloud providers. This gives Akash a way to credibly grow very, very quickly in scale for this physical infrastructure, and quickly have a network that has points of access all over the world, and grows to the scale where it can start to compete with some of these larger cloud compute providers, both on, where the servers are in latency, as well as with price and features. Because we're using this open source software that these cloud providers themselves have built to offer new features to their users, we can offer the same features as Akash very, very easily. It's it's the piece of Akash that has always had me the most excited, and to see it actually live out in the world and starting to draw in some of these companies with these incentives is just really, really cool. So that's great news, Greg. Okay, so Mainnet 2 coming online. One other thing that's happening soon that I know Akash is excited for is IBC, or inter-blockchain communication. And there's a lot of potential use cases for Akash with IBC. And, do you want to just say a few things about IBC? And I know we have a partnership with Kava as well. And anyway, I'll let you take it from there.
I'm super excited for IBC. We completed the upgrade to 0.40 Cosmos SDK. Akash is IBC ready right now. And we'll be one of the first mainnets to launch with IBC, if not the first one, I believe. I'm not too sure if there's anyone launching by Feb 15th with IBC ready mainnet.
The hub will be up, but
the
I
hub,
think you guys
yes.
might.
Right after the Cosmos Hub,
might be the second one. Yeah,
we will be the first network to connect to the hub, so which is nice. So first off the bat, I think what we're going to enable is DEX support for Akash. Right now, Akash availability for Akash token is limited on centralized exchanges. We want to enable decentralized exchanges and the automatic market making capability that this community is budding up. I saw an amazing demo from bHarvest the other day. I was just blown away. So right off the bat, we're going to be improving liquidity for AKT token with IBC, and really go towards realizing our broader vision to create a interoperable cloud. So if you look at what's happening in the decentralized cloud space today, you have amazing technologies that solve one particular problem, and then when combined for all these solutions is really you can create a comprehensive solution. Like for example, storage, Arweave and Filecoin and Storage A, and all these networks actually provide archival storage, right? One needs an archival storage in order to have a fully featured cloud solution, right? To put your database files or your ledgers and whatnot, right? A NewCipher provides KMS. So if you have any sensitive data, you want to use NewCipher. Handshake provides DNS, right? So for decentralized DNS, you need DNS along your thing and along your compute to discover your nodes. Akash provides compute, provides ephemeral storage, doesn't really do long-term storage. So you need to be able to work with all these networks in order to have a full solution. But the problem is you have to use different tokens and different signatures and all kinds of things. So imagine trying to automate a solution that spans across these networks. Like impossible, right? IBC is going to solve that like in an amazing way, right? So the real power of IBC, yes, initially it's going to be a lot of like exchange of tokens, but I think the real power is when you're going to solve these friction problems for decentralized cloud adoption. Once we solve that, and there's nothing in front of us to actually replace incumbent like centralized cloud providers in a unified way.
Yeah, and where all of that comes together is the compute layer. You need to stitch together the storage and the secrets and that signing. All of that happens in the compute layer, and this is why Akash is a necessary part of that interchain. So we've got about 5 minutes left here, and I wanted to shift into some audience questions really quickly. And I think that Jim asks one that's a great segue because we're kind of in the middle of covering this topic. Jim wants to ask, will it be possible with IBC to list AKT on Ethereum-based DEXs like Uniswap? And interestingly enough, the work that I've been doing for the last few months is building a way to transfer tokens back and forth between Cosmos chains and the Ethereum main chain. And that's tentatively called PEGI right now. What that allows is both Ethereum ERC20 tokens coming over into the Cosmos zones and being held as wrapped assets over on Cosmos zones, as well as Cosmos zones sending assets over to Ethereum. and minting them as new types of ERC20s that are controlled by that PEGI contract. So with IBC, very soon, and as I mentioned earlier, we're planning to go to mainnet sometime in mid-February, so right around the time when Akash will have IBC live, PEGI will be live as well, and users will be able to move their Akash to PEGI, move their Akash from PEGI over to Ethereum, and from Ethereum, utilize Uniswap. So with that effort, we're going to be listing, hopefully, all of the tokens in the Cosmos ecosystem on Uniswap through PEGI. And we're very excited about that. So that is coming soon.
Yeah, that's one of the first use cases that we're going to enable, a Ethereum bridge.
Yeah. So Tin also asks, are you going to partner with some decentralized cloud storage projects in order to the storage capacity as a bonus for cloud compute? Since, as far as I don't understand, you don't sell storage, right? You alluded to this earlier, but do you mind answering this in a little bit more detail, Greg?
Absolutely. So that's the idea. We don't want to build extra features to complete a solution. We rather partner with products like Filecoin, RV, Storage, Siacoin. There's so many of storage projects that we'll probably pick the best, or probably we'll partner with all of them. Really, let the user sort of like have the freedom to choose between them. This is more of a deeper integration, and we're of course designing on the best way to incorporate storage into Akash in the least amount of friction possible. Ideally, we should be able to leverage IBC so that you don't have to hold different tokens and just pay using Akash tokens, and still leverage the storage capabilities of these projects. But I think the first integration from a technology standpoint is going to be storage, because that's obvious, right? For compute, you need storage. Storage is compute. So,
yeah, that's a great point. Jim also asks, will a user be able to stake the AKT tokens that moved to ERC20? Now, this is sort of a subtle point about IBC that Greg also just alluded to, where he's talking about these very complex multi-step transactions where you're buying compute and you're buying storage. Those are getting paired up, and the end user experience is actually very, very clean and hides a lot of that. IBC really is this infrastructure level protocol that's meant for developers to write automation on top of it. In this use case that we're talking about right here of Akash tokens on ERC20 is a great example. Now, as a user, I would really like to be able to have my Akash wallet in, say, or an Ethereum wallet, a single wallet interface, and say, I would like to buy some Akash tokens on Uniswap, and then I would like to stake them. Now, the process that happens there is relatively complex, but we can wrap that all in a sane user experience. Right now, what's going to happen is you're going to have to buy those tokens on Uniswap, move them back through PEGI, and then via IBC back to Akash, and then stake them. Very possible, just a few more transactions, and takes a little bit more how-to. Initially, over the first month or so of the deployment, users will be able to do this, and there will be guides. And then after the first month or so, certain steps of that flow will be automated. And then after about 6 months or so, once the technology is a little bit more mature, it's going to end up being this kind of one-click process where you can buy them and then stake them very quickly. And there's a little UI that will walk you through the basic steps. And with storage as well, like if you wanted to use IBC to rent some storage over on Storage or any of these other decentralized storage networks like Filecoin, those same types of things are going to happen. So the Cosmos vision, and Greg working in Kubernetes very much understands this, is ship and iterate. You don't ship software without bugs in it. And there's some rough edges on the user experience at first, and folks like yourselves who are using the technology for the first time will tell us where we need to improve, and then we will slowly improve the technology for you. A great question to end on. And Greg, do you have any last things to say before we wrap this one up?
I concur with everything you said. We're going to ship. We're going to focus on shipping functionality, and I mean, ideally, you want to be able to pay for using compute. Staking is one thing, but actually paying for compute using Ethereum or a ERC20 token, that means any stable currency on ERC, is the ideal like scenario that we are all going towards. So yes, and we're going to do this in multiple stages. First, we're going to do a wrapped bridge that will eventually become a lot native.
Awesome. Yeah, and hopefully once we prove this Peggy module out, you guys can just go ahead and import that. Any call to action? If users are finding out about Akash for the first time today, what should they go do?
Come join our Telegram or Discord. We really want as many applications as possible on our mainnet too. Ideally, if you're building out a Cosmos chain node, Akash is a first-class cloud to run a Cosmos node. So we welcome you to go check out our GitHub to have guide. I mean, there are guides there on how to run Cosmos nodes on Akash. Please do check out the Thorchain if you're really interested in earning $4,000. So come talk to me. I'm on Twitter as well as pretty active on Telegram and Discord. So if you have any questions, and keep an eye out for the mainnet 2 coming on February 14th. Really excited about it.
Awesome. Akash.network is the website. You'll find links to the Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. Thank you very much. And it's Greg Osuri _ on Twitter. Thank you very much, Greg. This has been a wonderful podcast, and looking forward to doing some more of these. I think next week I'll have Kevin, who's the CTO over at Kava Network, on. So look forward to seeing you guys then. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you guys soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thanks.